I do not know. I do not know what an illegal immigrant looks like. I can tell you that I think that there are people in Arizona that assume they know what an illegal immigrant looks like.
What does an illegal immigrant look like? For all the Arizona governor's explicit promises that racial profiling is not allowed by her state's new Papers, Please law, neither she nor anyone in Arizona has yet been able to describe what counts as reasonable suspicion for a police officer to stop a person and demand that that person prove that he or she is in the country legally. And so Arizona has now asked the federal government for help in determining what criteria police officers should use in figuring out who looks illegal. No word yet if they'll get that help from the federal government, especially since President Obama has ordered the federal Justice Department to review Arizona's new law in terms of its civil rights implications. Meanwhile, the objections to Arizona's law continue to reverberate. The Board of Supervisors in the city of San Francisco at this hour are considering a resolution to boycott Arizona by ending city contracts with Arizona-based firms. Late today, Mayor Gavin Newsom announced a moratorium on San Francisco city employees' official travel to Arizona. One lawyers group has already dropped a national convention that the group had planned for Arizona for the fall. Tucson Congressman Raul Grijalva, who was a guest tonight on Countdown, continues to call for everyone to boycott his home state. Phil Gordon, the mayor of Phoenix, Arizona's largest city, is of course hoping to avoid a state boycott, but he's described the new law as unconstitutional. The mayor had threatened to sue the state over the new law, but he couldn't get the Republican majority on Phoenix's city council to support him. Late today, Mayor Gordon dropped his pursuit of getting the council's backing on the planned lawsuit and decided to bring the suit on his own. And here's one. Sports writer Dave Zirin, who's been a frequent guest on this show, is urging his readers to boycott the Arizona Diamondbacks baseball team in whatever ballpark they're playing in, both as a symbol of the state and because the team's owners have been such major supporters of the Republican Party, which sponsored and passed the bill. The idea of a civil rights sports boycott is the sort of thing that resonates in Arizona. You might remember that way back in 1987, the state's Republican governor then rescinded Arizona's participation in the federal holiday honoring Martin Luther King Jr. A voter referendum in 1990 also rejected that holiday, leading the NFL Players Association and the NFL in 1991 to yank a planned Super Bowl 27 from the city of Phoenix. The following year, Arizona voters changed their minds about honoring Martin Luther King. The state did get its Super Bowl a few years later in 1996, but not before tourism officials estimate that that time as a pariah state, because of a civil rights issue, cost just the city of Phoenix alone almost 170 conventions and an estimated $300 million in lost revenue. I should probably also mention that Major League Baseball's annual All-Star Game and all of the tourism it brings with it is scheduled for Phoenix next July. Joining us now is Tom Simplot. He is on the Phoenix City Council. Mr. Simplot, thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate your time.
Hi, Rachel. Happy to be here.
What happened this afternoon that prompted Mayor Gordon to not seek a vote from the City Council about suing over this law?
Well, two of our colleagues issued press releases basically saying that they weren't going to support the effort and that they didn't think that the mayor had the majority of the votes in order to do that. So at the last minute, the mayor pulled several of us off to the side and said the city charter actually allows him, as mayor, to initiate legal action on behalf of the city. So that's exactly what he did. So we held a press conference and the mayor announced that, in fact, he would initiate the lawsuit with or without the financial backing of the city.
And do you support him doing that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why I was a part of the press conference, and we have to draw a line somewhere, and we have to stand up to what is wrong, and this law is wrong.
Would you think that the city of Phoenix should sue on this? Obviously, it's one tactic among many that can be used to sort of oppose this, but now that it's passed, a lawsuit would, I would assume, be an effort by the city of Phoenix to injunct the state from actually enforcing it.
Absolutely. That's exactly the goal. Stay the enforcement of the implementation of the law, and quite frankly, send the message to the rest of the country that Phoenix is not a part of any of what this has, any part of the creation of this law. Phoenix is a much more progressive city than, quite frankly, most of the state, and this sends a clear message to that effect.
That said, a majority of the city council are Republicans, and those 5 Republican members apparently could not be counted on to support the mayor's proposed lawsuit here.
That's right.
Are those objections based on their support for the bill, or are they objecting because they just don't want the mayor to be suing on any matter?
You know, from my perspective, I think it's a smokescreen. Several of my colleagues, those 5 individuals in particular, have relied upon the polling that they say suggests that a majority of Arizonans believe that this law is the right thing to do. Personally, I don't believe the polling. I think if the vast majority of Arizonans really knew what that law said, they would agree the law is wrong and that we shouldn't have passed that law and that it needs to be stayed so that it doesn't go into effect.
Mr. Simplot, I wonder if the previous experience of Arizona being boycotted on a civil rights issue, which I described about the Super Bowl on the Martin Luther King issue back in the late 80s and 90s, I wonder if that is sort of on people's minds again now as these boycott calls come up again, given the huge financial cost that the city of Phoenix paid during the time of that first round of boycotting.
Absolutely. Those of us who lived through that era before, and I wasn't an elected official back then, but I can tell you it affected all of us. The boycotts, it affected tourism, it affected home construction, it affected the entire state of Arizona. And that's exactly what could happen again. And we need to get this resolved before that happens.
I have to ask you about one other element of opposition to this law that maybe isn't the most serious element of opposition, but it's probably the one that is of most interest nationally. And that's the fact that the Colombian pop star Shakira is expected to visit Phoenix on Thursday to speak out against this new law. I anticipate that she will be the first of many celebrities who do that sort of thing. What do you think the impact of that might be?
You know, I hope it's huge. This is the first person, like you said, to come into the state. Shakira is fantastic. People listen to her. She has a lot of credibility, and quite frankly, she also attracts a younger part of the population who will agree with what she says. And I think what she's going to say is this law is wrong, and we need to get it changed, and help us do that.
Tom Simplot, Phoenix City Council member, thank you very much for your time tonight, sir. I know it's been a heck of a day in Phoenix.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.